Want to play Outlaw?
Wow.
Do you know that everybody else is going to tell you Assassination and Subtlety Rogues are much better? In some cases they are. Do you still want to play? Well then, this video is for you. Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and today we'll be doing an Outlaw Rogue Arena PvP guide. I'm going to be giving you guys some advice as well as tips on how to perform better as your Outlaw Rogue within arenas. This video is going to be full of moments where I'm going to slow down the gameplay and use graphic visuals in order to show you guys certain key areas that I want you guys to focus on. I'm going to break down a couple different games that I had recently where I feel like Outlaw shines the best. I believe that out of the three specs of Rogue, Outlaw is probably the most fun to play. So I am going to be focusing on Outlaw, where I could be playing other specs for their strengths and weaknesses. Outlaw, like every spec in the game, has its own things that it does well, and has things that it doesn't do that well. So I'm going to take both of them into account and try to make the best of a spec that I would just simply prefer to play. First, the basics. How do we gear? What stats do you want? What talents do you want? So let's get through that very quickly. Your best stats are going to be haste, versatility, critical strike, and mastery. Try to avoid mastery on your gear as best as possible. It doesn't really do much for us. When it comes to enchants, enchant everything for haste, and when it comes to your weapon enchants, you want one quick navigation and one versatile navigation. Second, let's talk about the Azeroth traits you want from your gear. You're going to want a variety of different traits, primarily Deadshot, Ace Up Your Sleeve, and Snake Eyes. The best combo is going to be triple Deadshot, double Snake Eyes, and a singular Ace Up Your Sleeve. Although a slightly varied version of this build is triple Snake for that some strike consistency, but you do reduce your pistol shot burst effectiveness, but still maintain one Ace for that chance for the extra combo points to be refunded on a stun. Now this part of the video is going to be paced a little different. This is going to be me going over the talents real quick. So the talents are going to be pretty straightforward. These are going to be mostly the talents you'll run in majority situations. It's going to be Quick Draw, Retractable Hook for that insane mobility, Deeper Stratagem, Elusiveness, Blinding Powder, Alacrity, Killing Spree, and for the PvP talents we get the Gladiator's Medallion, unless you're an Orc or a Human, Smoke Bomb, Thick as Thieves, and Control as King. Some of the notable stuff here compared to the original builds that I run. Normally I go something like Acrobatic Strikes, and you would think that yes, that 3-yard range is super nice, it's great for your abilities, but also it gets you that a little bit extra range towards your kick. So instead of melee range, you have the 3 extra yards. So sometimes you have a caster who roots you out in the open, and they're trying to cast in your face thinking, oh, they're right out of that melee range. You can always surprise them with Acrobatic. But Retractable, having Grappling Hook in 30 seconds with the cooldown reduction that Outlaw has, gets you really mobile and lets you kind of zoom all over the map whenever you want to. Now, in the last few, I guess, weeks of playing Outlaw, or even a month, I've been slowly transitioning towards Mark for Death. I like the combo points that it gets you on demand, as a fairly short cooldown if you combine the cooldown reduction that Outlaw naturally gets. In some areas, it can actually be shorter than 30 seconds, so it could technically be faster of a cooldown than what Subtlety and Assassination gets, but for the most part, it's very similar. But going back to Deeper Stratagem is the right option. Getting extra combo points to play with for your stuns, for your finishers, for your buffs. Having good buffs and maintaining them longer is super nice. It does give you a little bit of a slower playstyle because you don't have the energy regen of Vigor, you don't really have the cooldown reduction on Mark for Death and the available Mark for Death run through or Mark for the stun, whatever you want to, but Deeper Stratagem is going to be core to what an Outlaw Rogue does, and it just fits so well to the playstyle. Some of the talents that you can run with is going to be, first of all, Control as King, a must-have. You can't really swap this one out that often. This is going to be the best talent because it provides you a little bit extra adrenaline rush whenever the target is silenced, stunned, or polymorphed. Depending on what classes you play with, and majority of classes are going to have one of these abilities, the more stuns there are in the game, the more CC is in the game, the more damage you can do, and that's going to be free adrenaline rush that is not tied to your main cooldown. Thick as Thieves is going to be the second best option, but also I would say in some cases a must-have. It's not quite the Golden Boy's Control the King, for example. This is a must-have. You got to have this everywhere. The Thick as Thieves just provides you 10% extra damage for both you and your ally. Effectively, that's 20% damage to your group. So depending how you use it, let's say with a healer or another DPS, just tell them, hey, Tricks in you, do as much damage as you can for 6 seconds. And with this talent alone, you can actually turn around a lot of the damage. It's off the GCD, so you can really fit it into your abilities at any moment. It doesn't have a cost, because Tricks doesn't have a cost on its own, only a 30-second cooldown. Smoke Bomb is what you would run in arenas, this is what you would run in battlegrounds, but if anything, Smoke Bomb would be the talent that you can swap out of. One of the options being maybe Drink Up Me Hearties. If you decide to go for Drink Up Me Hearties, this is the talent you would want to run for like double DPS, so then you would want to go Iron Stomach and have double heal, and you should be able to share that Crimson Vial with an ally. Dismantle is another great talent. It lets you disarm an enemy if you have certain comps or certain arenas, and you know that the melee character in that arena is going to be a lot to deal with, whether they do a lot of damage to you, whether they do a lot of damage to someone else. Like a Fury Warrior, for example, I don't really want a Fury Warrior to really ramp up and deal incredible damage to me. I'd rather be able to maybe dismantle them from time to time, because I won't be able to gouge them to hold them in place. Dismantle becomes a much more of a cooldown, much more useful of a cooldown. But yeah, these are the talents that I would most likely run in just about every situation. It changes up the build that I usually run slightly, but it is probably the most effective from what I've seen so far. Another question I know I'm going to get is, what are the best buffs for Outlaw? So I went together and made a little compass with the buffs coordinated based on World of Warcraft rarity for items. You're going to have the purple, the orange, the blue, the green is going to be a little bit different. So let me explain these really quickly. In the orange, we have broadsides, increasing the damage of our common point builders by 20% and increasing the common point generation. Going to be the best for damage, whether you bursting or sustain. In the purple tier, the second best tier, we're going to have Skull and Crossbones as well as Ruthless Precision. Both of those are going to be still pretty good for a damage output perspective. Going into the rare quality, we do have the Grand Melee. It gives you an auto attack buff, which is nice, but not nearly as powerful as some of the other buffs. Then we're going to have the Gray, which is Buried Treasure. It gives you 0 DPS increase, not the buff you really want for Burst. And then in the green, we have True Bearing. Now, True Bearing is not quite in the gray, but it is definitely very close to gray. It is unique in the fact that it increases your cooldown reduction recovery, as in, while this buff is active, every time you spend common points into a finisher, you get your buffs faster, you get your cooldowns faster, like Adrenaline Rush, Sprint, Vanish. So this one can be good in some situations, but it's not good in all situations. Otherwise, I would have put this buff in the gray tier, but because of its unique effect, it's green. This one is more or less of a decision for you. Do you want it? Do you need it right now? Or do you not need your cooldowns? Should you better re-roll? That's really going to be up to you. The Outlaw Rogue buffs is going to really depend on, do you have cooldowns? Are you going for damage? Do you need a better buff? Because you do need to remember that the Azeroth trait of Snake Eyes does give you more damage on Cinder Strikes after rolling a set of buffs. So you don't really need to keep re-rolling until you get the best buff, but just be aware of which buffs are good, which ones are not, and try to line up your burst with some of the better buffs rather than with some of the worst buffs in the game. Now I want to go over and commentate a bit over some of the games and tell you guys what's going on through my head. Tell you guys some of the things to watch out for. A lot of the games that I have don't start from the very beginning, so I don't really get to show you guys the opener. But this clip right here would be a good example of how I choose my situation, how I choose my target, what my approach is, positional, and whatnot. I'm going to leave in all my mistakes, as well as all the things that I did right, and I'll comment on all those things in a closer breakdown to show you guys a little bit of what I'm thinking through, what is going through my mind, and give you guys an idea of kind of how I decide things. At the very beginning, it's going to be a shaman and a monk. I would personally rather just DPS a monk down rather than a shaman. It's going to be a lot of cooldowns to go through, but shamans are a little bit tanky right now. I'm going to sab the monk, get the cheap shot opener onto the shaman, get myself a really good buff setup. So now I'm really ready to go. I got my opener, I can do stuff. So I'm going to just swap my damage onto the monk, get the blind on the shaman, and try to see if I can do some damage from there. Now I get my blind off on the shaman, but I do get stunned up by the monk. So this is a good situation in terms of CC department. I get my CC off, but now I gotta make a decision. Do I want to take the damage and the momentum that I have onto the monk that has me CC'd? Do I want to trinket this or not? I have really good buffs. I have exceptionally good buffs that I got in the opener. So I decided, you know what, I need to force some cooldowns. Getting this blind out is really, really bad. So I really need to play catch up. So I decided to trinket this here, and I'm gonna go for damage after. And I get a decent setup of damage. I get a trinket out of the monk, which is good. I vanish the Fist of Fury just so I can kind of peel it off of me, and so I can continue doing my damage. I have really good output, so I'm just going to stay on the monk. There's no point of me trying to kite around. I'm actually just trying to pump up my DPS numbers. At this point, you actually have the shaman here trying to cast. This is something you can do as an Outlaw Rogue. Since grappling hook is a much shorter cooldown, you should be using this aggressively and trying to almost, in some cases, predict a kick. So you can grapple hook kick a shaman, basically giving you almost like a shadow step kick, but in some cases a much shorter cooldown, but also much harder to land. Then the game is going to go on. The shaman throws down Earth Wall Totem. I do want to get more damage onto the monk. I get myself a good reroll, and I try to go for some cross CC onto the shaman, hoping that my druid helps me out. I am going to go stun the shaman since I have him out there, and we can combine a cyclone to follow afterwards. But I'm taking a lot of damage. I got a touch of death, I got a maledict incoming, so my druid cannot really go for CC. This is something I could have done differently. I could have held off my CC so that maybe I could have lined up something more cleaner with my druid. So I'm going to just try to survive this damage. We are not going to get any kind of CC off of the shaman, but I still have a lot of good damage, and I can continue hitting the monk. But the void shield trinket is going to come out, so this is where I'm going to have to play back a little bit. We do have the trinket out of the shaman, which is huge. I grapple hook out of that capacitive totem that the shaman puts up in a corner. There is going to be CC chain onto my druid, but I am going to go get a gouge on the shaman, get a stun on the monk, and we actually do get a karma out of the monk. Now, I am going to be vanishing out of that Fist of Fury. I really don't want to be slowed down on that Fist of Fury. Since I'm an Outlaw Rogue, I do get cooldown reduction. Now, you don't always have to be using Vanish in weird ways and non-conventional ways, but you definitely should be open to it. Sometimes you just need to vanish out of a situation to reposition, even ever so slightly, or dodge certain abilities. Is definitely worth trying and using as Outlaw. Now, the Shaman still has a trinket, so this is where I'm going to go for some CC chain. I have my blind almost back. Grapple hook into the shaman because I have grapple hook up so often. I have insane amount of mobility as this build. The shaman is sitting at full stun. The monk is taking quite a bit of damage, and I do have a blind back. This is one of the advantages of an Outlaw Rogue. Having blinds back a lot more often gets you more of this setup CC chain. I have the shaman completely CC'd all by myself. And just like that, we do get the shaman's trinket, so now we can line up a kill. We got every cooldown out of these guys. We even are getting ascendance out of the shaman, but you know what? Outlaw still has decent damage. We just need a small setup. We do get a gouge onto the shaman. I'm just gonna pump this monk full of damage. Maledict comes out of my healer, and down he goes. All we need is a little bit of pressure, get a little CC, get a short stun by my healer, and then we closed out the game. The next arena is going to be Assassination Rogue, Holy Paladin. We're going to be sitting on Rogue since all our physical damage is not going to do a lot to the Pala. We're going to be seeing a play here pretty early on. Going to stun the Rogue so we can do some damage, but we're also going to land that smoke bomb as the Pally heal is coming out, interrupting the heal, stumbling the enemy team, which is definitely going to force a cooldown. What we're going to try to do for the rest of the game is try to force some sort of cooldowns out of the Paladin. Slowly but surely, we get the trinket out of the Rogue, so now we can really lock him down. The Rogue is pretty susceptible to any kind of CC chain. So I am going to be getting a gouge onto the healer, swapping over to the Rogue with a grapple hook, trying to peel the Rogue off of my druid. And we are seeing the Paladin trying to get those repentances out there. So now we know what kind of a setup Paladin plays. The Paladin is actually going to be bashed by my druid. He's going to trinket out of it and go for repent on my druid. My healer is CC'd. I do have Iron Bark on me. I do have one hot on me, but I also see a Maledict coming my way. With a Maledict and the Rogue sitting with a bop with a Vendetta, this is a lot of things that could go bad. My healer's still CC'd. I want to be able to utilize that Iron Bark as best as possible. I'm going to choose to cloak this before I take that Maledict damage, and I'm going to be able to cloak majority of the poison damage coming out from the Rogue from his Vendetta. things don't really ease up afterwards, and as an Outlaw Rogue, sometimes you just gotta grapple hook out of a bad situation, so do use mobility as a defensive. We do get another Maledict from the Rogue, Smoke Bomb coming down, so I'm gonna parry, and I'm just gonna trying to hang on for dear life. If you freeze this frame here, my health doesn't look that good. There's no confidence for my healer. He's thinking I'm probably dead, but I do gotta find a way to turn this around because the enemy Rogue also has fairly low health. I gotta be thinking about the next step rather than panicking about my current situation. How am I looking? I got a really good buff with Broadside, legendary buff. We got ourselves full common points, so a stun is ready to go. What else do we see? We see a snake buff. What else do we see on the screen? We see a pistol shot proc. So that's actually a lot of potential damage, but can I make that damage work? I'm low on health. I might as well try to make a play. There's not a lot that I can really do defensively, so I might as well go CC and offensive. So we do get actual good damage, and we do force a defensive out of the Paladin. We do get a sack. I am starting to recover. My healer is able to get a bunch of hots on me. We are looking pretty good, and now we actually have somewhat of an advantage over the other team. Although I make one mistake here. I blind the enemy healer while he has sacrifice still on the Rogue. So this is something that I want to point out to you guys. That's my mistake. I made a mistake. Be careful when you blind, especially with Paladins and sack. Because of my careless mistake, it's going to be a little bit longer before we can close this game out. And this Rogue is really feeling the pressure. You can see he's just trying to line of sight me the whole time. He's not trying to engage unless he has a stun. And I'm just trying to close this game out. I have the damage. I have the potential here. We can make it work. I just need a little bit of CC. And right as I get a Vanish Cheap Shot, we force a Paladin bubble. We do get a bop onto the Rogue. My healer does the greatest thing ever and cyclones the Rogue. So this is something my druid was able to do, is open me up a little bit of a position where I could maybe go for a finish. He goes for one cyclone on the Paladin while I'm trying to close it off. I'm trying not to get stunned up here, and I'm trying to wait for my stun, but wasn't lucky. 3 cyclones later, the Paladin has set full CC chain, trying to get a repent off of my druid. I stop it with a stun. The Rogue doesn't have enough health and sustained damage compared to the Outlaw, and down he goes. That's another game that we were able to score. The next game is going to be another Rogue Paladin game. A lot of the games that I've had against other Rogues have been probably the most exciting ones. I'll be frank, playing Outlaw versus Assass or Subtlety and trying to find a way to get an upper hand over the other spec that's supposed to be the better spec that what you're playing is always fun. We do get a blind onto the Rogue, and we do see a bop onto the Rogue a little bit early. Now, this Paladin might have given away his biggest defensive for the Rogue, so now he's definitely out in the open. If we can get trinkets out of the Rogue and really lock him down, he just might tip over. The Rogue throws me into a blind, I get out of it, and I run to my healer ASAP to try to get to him, trying to peel the Rogue, trying to slow everybody down. He does get a bunch of hots, and he's able to recover, but that was a lot of pressure they took from an Assassination Rogue. We're going to go for a Smoke Bomb play onto the Rogue. He's fairly low health. This is where we want to force some kind of pressure out of the Rogue, see if maybe we can get a trinket out of the Rogue or more cooldowns out of the Pala. And we do get a sack, but he did have to dispel the Maledict, so that's one of our Maledicts down. We do have a second Maledict for me if we ever need to. And I see my druid is running around circles. I need to peel this Rogue off of him. But I still need to force cooldowns out of the Rogue. The DR for his stun is actually almost off. I gouge him for a second to keep him in place, and we do get a full stun onto the Rogue. Now, I did something weird here. I decided to go for full damage and decided to trinket the Hodge. But because I am going to be blown a cooldown, I might as well pre-feint this next kidney coming up over the Rogue. Because these guys didn't really get the best CC chain, they did DR that kidney. It was stupid of me to trinket, but at least if you are going to make something stupid, remember to cover yourself. Feint can always be used in order to deflect any damage coming out after you open yourself up. Now, one thing I want you guys to pay attention as I commentate through the rest of this part is the fact that Paladin didn't bubble, and there's a couple different reasons as why. We get a gouge on the Paladin, gonna go for full stuns on Pally while DPS in the Rogue. No evasion, no bop, no sacrifice. Paladin used wings a little bit early. The only thing he has is bubble. But we are getting back-to-back stuns. He does shrink it out. Maybe if he could have bubbled and just spam flashlight of the Rogue, he might have had it. But the guy was out of defensives for the Rogue. He was out of externals. So I don't really know if a bubble could have done anything. Now, I do have a couple more of these clips. If you guys do want me to go over a bit more about some of the things that I can share with Rogue, like maybe the insane Outlaw Rogue mobility, the crazy CC chain, or just simply the amazing survivability that you can do with your Outlaw with specific talents, how to deal with certain classes, let me know in the comments below. I got a couple more clips that I can go over and slow down just for you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts about Outlaw Rogue, how you're playing it, if you are playing one, and how you're liking it. And hopefully you guys find this video useful. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this, where I do hardcore breakdowns with slow-mo and showcasing you guys stuff. It's kind of fun learning more things about YouTube and editing, and this is kind of fun to put together. Thank you guys. I'll see all of you in another video.